welcome back to another episode of College Football on Tap. My name is Bruno, and today we got our guest again. I think it was 2 weeks ago that you joined us. We got Ross back here, so thank you again, Ross, for covering for our boy Chris.
Yeah, no problem. Always happy to be on.
Yeah, Chris had a little bit of a surgery, so he needed to take some time off. Didn't really feel comfortable with the kids as well as his fiance's working on a Saturday morning to try and do this show as he did the procedure yesterday. I did send him the invite, so if he does pop on here, we'll add him in for a little bit if he has time. If not, it'll just be me and Ross doing our thing. Ross, main thing, Michigan. It's we're stuck talking about it. Me and Chris talked about it on Monday. We didn't want to have this control of the football season, and every single day this week, more and more news kept on coming out on this, and now the Michigan scandal has pretty much taken over college football.
Yeah, exactly. It just falls into the pattern of time. It's a flat circle over and over, where just all these programs. Once again, we can go back 20 years in our lifetime, and it's the same thing. It's the USC. It's a Texas. It's Miami. It's a Miami. It's a Florida. It's Ohio State. The team that's on top, something always comes out.
Yeah, I mean, this year I don't know, it just feels like it's actually bothering me to a point where I just didn't want this to be. And I don't want it to be like I don't really get too attached to anything outside of the Midwest. And yeah, I'm not a Michigan guy, I'm a Notre Dame guy, but still just don't want to see it from the schools in the Midwest because I still kind of take pride in the whole Midwest outside of U of I. I don't really, none of those guys, but football teams, mad football teams. And having this happen with Michigan, it just it's a downer, especially when they finally turned it around after seasons of Harbaugh not being able to beat Ohio State. Finally, now back-to-back years beating them, looking like a good team again. J.J. McCarthy right now is the favorite to win the Heisman by a slim margin. It's just everything surrounds Michigan in college football, and then you have this, and it's just even when they're not playing, I don't even know how to feel. It just sucks.
It's one of those things where you and I have spoken prior about it, where we're from the Midwest. We love just Midwest football, even though we're Notre Dame guys. There's just something about when, Michigan is back, Michigan is good, that makes college football great again. And it's just one of those things, they're back, they're running the table, and then this comes out and it just puts a damper on the whole mood in general.
Yeah. And that's literally what it is. So to kind of get into it, a little bit of a rundown of what else is going on with the Michigan scandal. So now there's been talks that the repercussions from this could include a 2 to 3 year bowl ban, scholarships lost, wins vacated. So this season that we're watching, where they very well might win the national championship, literally just might have an asterisk next to it, and they won't even get the trophy. And we'll know who won it, but they're not going to want to tell you who won it. And technically it'll go down as the record book of whoever ends up losing in the college football national championship to them. And this could run from as far back as 2008 when it all started with Harbaugh to now. I mean, God only knows at this point as more keeps on coming out on it. But to have all this be a possibility now, it's just, like I said, it puts a damper on everything. It's makes me in a way kind of want Michigan to lose a football game. And I would never cheer for them to lose to Ohio State because, I mean, it's Ohio State and USC for me. I can't stand either of them. So it's just, I don't even know what to think or feel about it, honestly. It's just it really does just kind of put a damper on the season for me, especially when Notre Dame's good, but not going to be in the national championship picture, not going to be in the college football playoff. It's rough. It's just rough.
Well, you and I were already talking off camera a little bit, where this started with a whole outside investigation that was brought to the NCAA's attention by an anonymous source. We were joking around, watch the anonymous source be the McCaskies because they want Harbaugh out of Michigan and get him to
Yeah,
Chicago.
that could be the one good thing that could come out of this. But
And
if Matt Eberflus keeps on winning football games all of a sudden, then we're not even going to be thinking about a new head coach again. So
yeah, I mean, and it is one of those things where he's had the success there, where he's been outright and forward. He wants to stay at Michigan. I think this is one of those situations that could flip that decision for him.
oh
I
yeah,
mean,
absolutely.
if it's gonna, I'm just saying, if I'm him, I know there's teams that want my services elsewhere. If this is gonna be the next 2-3 years of I'm not going to be able to get the players I want. And no offense, and it comes down to no offense, but are you really going to go play if the sanctions come down? Are you really going to go play for Michigan for maybe your senior year? You have a shot.
No, no. I mean, Michigan's literally going to be a team that's where Northwestern and Illinois and Nebraska and all those teams are in the Big Ten, which is that 3-5, 4-4 kind of purgatory thing that they're going to be into for a while. I mean, Northwestern had a couple of years there underneath Fitz there, but it's just in general, those teams always stay down, and that's what's going to happen to Michigan, and they'll stay down for a couple of years if these sanctions do come down on them. I mean, this could take years yet. I mean, there's so much coming out, but like, I know that they wouldn't probably let it get into next season. They probably want to sit there and make some type of ruling within the next week so that they don't ruin their college football playoff. Like, let's not even put this team in there at the end of the year. Yeah, like it's going to be another asterisk situation where they might be the true number one or true number two, whatever you want to say, because they're undefeated. But do you want to watch them play if it's not going to matter in those games either way? Would you rather have a replacement team? I don't. I mean, it's tough to debate.
Yeah, no, it definitely is, and like I said, it just puts a whole damper on the thing where it's fun to watch them compete. It's a great team, it's an exciting team, but with all this happening, are we just gonna recognize that hey, you may play for the national championship, but just so you know, it's not going to count.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Just want to shout out to them, Anthony, somebody from your family, I'm guessing, TJ Rat.
It's
So
Uncle Timmy.
all right. Hi, Uncle Timmy. Yeah, Ross having his family join in and watch the show. Really appreciate it. Way to bring those ratings as we face up against College Game Day right now.
They don't stand a chance.
Another thing with this that I found really interesting is read an article this week that I believe it came out. It might have been The Athletic or it was Bleacher Report. I can't remember which one it was. That TCU knew about this sign stealing scandal last season.
Flashing they were flashing dummy
playoff.
calls.
Yeah, so TCU sat there and gave them, they knew that they had signs of theirs and gave dummy signs, which threw Michigan off and ultimately helped TCU win that football game. A lot of us, I think, last year were shocked that TCU won that game. I think the spread was double digits coming into it. Like, no one expected TCU to go to the national championship. Everyone thought it was a Michigan versus Georgia sure thing. And TCU just outsmarted them because their little way of knowing what you're going to do for the most part just was taken away from them.
Yeah, I read an article in USA Today the other day about it, and it was one of TCU's coaches was like, oh yeah, was like blatantly out in the open, like, oh yeah, we knew they were stealing our stuff. So we spent 2 weeks prepping, making sure everyone knew that it'd be like the first or third signal were bullshit, and it's the second signal that was hidden is the play we're gonna run because they knew Michigan was watching.
Yeah, awesome. That's kind of the only cool thing to come from any of this right now is that TCU was prepared for what Michigan already was doing, and yet somehow no other team has figured this out heading heading into these games this year, like everyone was clueless who's played them this season thus far, but TCU was a year ahead of it. Like it's
The,
crazy to me.
there's like a TCU offensive assistant or whatever that they interviewed him when he came out on the record. He said he got a tip or a hint from a buddy from another program to like look into this, and I guess that assistant going through film and everything eventually came to the conclusion like, oh my god, they are doing this. And which now when you look, a year in the future, makes total sense why they won that game. That
Yeah,
they were the step ahead. Where it, as much of an instant classic as it became for an upset, now you can actually see like how that unfolded and where it
yeah.
came from. That they knew.
Yeah, that's like a 30 for 30 waiting to happen. I mean, this is all a 30 for 30 waiting to happen. I mean, this Michigan story is just getting crazy as I mean, there's more layers to it. There's more than just the sign stealing scandal. There's everything else that Harbaugh is doing. Now we got the old assistant coach, Weiss. I guess he's type of issue now where he was had the ability to look at documents that he wasn't supposed to have from the school.
Yep.
And I don't really know what that completely was concerning for. I don't think it had anything to do with football in general, but it's just more things happening underneath the Harbaugh regime.
Yeah, I actually think this may go up a little higher than we think it does in the athletic department potentially, where it's kind of one of those we're gonna sit back and see how it unfolds in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I'm wondering now, you sit here and you have the Michigan stuff, you have the Northwestern stuff from earlier this season. Did Kevin Warren just kind of be like, this is gonna get a little rough on my record? It's Chicago Bears. Oh yeah, I'll go save you guys. So like, I mean, it's just kind of something that's running through my head just because all this crap is happening in his conference the year that he's less than what 6 months removed from the position there. I mean, 7, 8 months. I mean, it's not been that long. It hasn't been the length of a full season.
No, it definitely puts up a red flag. Is if he saw red flags like, oh no no no, I do not get paid enough to deal with that.
Yeah. I mean, I know everything that he did for the Big Ten in general, but I could definitely see that being a thing. So it's just, I mean, it's kind of the same talk that we're having with Harbaugh, like gonna probably go to an NFL job when the shit comes completely falling down. Like this is probably his last season as Michigan head coach at this rate. So, yeah, when the shit comes falling down, he's gonna get out and he's gonna be somewhere else when it's like, oh, hey, new head coach, sorry about this team that you're being handed and all the issues that's coming with it. Like, yeah, honestly, just it just keeps on getting crazier and crazier. I know probably by Monday, the next time me and Chris are on, or next Friday or Saturday, whenever we do the next shows, like there's gonna be more. There's gonna be
Mhm.
more stuff. Like, I mean, it probably will come out around like 2:30 today. They'll be like, oh, here's more crap. Harbaugh was ordering strippers for the whole team every week. And I mean, I don't know. Like,
No, oh yeah, where he already got in trouble for buying kids hamburgers. Turns out he actually bought the kid a hamburger at the strip club. Sorry.
yeah. Those lunch specials, they're great. Um, with that, more like I mean, another thing I didn't even think, more stuff with Mel Tucker. Another Big Ten issue. It's just so the Mel Tucker has been found what is it? He was found responsible for the harassment of the um guest speaker that they had to come talk about sexual harassment and why it's wrong as the head coach sexually harasses her. Um, just
just just plain and simple, on this show we are all about consent and everything. But literally this may be the last person in the world that you should even attempt to flirt with.
yes, like it's literally they're going to take red flags and like since they're sitting there preaching about how to go about even like talking about this, like go like to let people know, like, hey, this happened to you. That's part of her role. Like, she's going to be one of the first people that's going to be willing to speak up when a lot of other people might not be. She's going to. So you are like, one, gross, two, an idiot. Like, what the fuck are you doing, Mel Tucker? Like, come on, man. Like, you're a moron.
Well, like the fact they're talking about like FaceTimes where he's just walking around talking to her with his shirt off, everything. Like, pardon me, but if it's me, I'm not even FaceTiming that lady unless I'm in a full suit being presentable to just talk and ask questions about booking the next time you're to come talk to my team, let alone walking around shirtless with a tarp off.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, you really can't make up the idiocy in this. I mean, it's just, it's completely ridiculous. Um, and it's unfortunate, that this had to be a thing that brought a Michigan State program that thought they found their head coach for the next 10 years, that the university has to now go through more peril when they're trying to still get over all the problems that happened with the gymnastics program and everything there. It's like they're still trying to recover from a very disgusting act that was taking place on their campus for years and years, and trying to move past that. And then years later, something like this comes out, and it's just like not giving them the opportunity to. And it's a shame because you want to see the university turn around. You don't want to see problems with prominent athletic schools too. I mean, it comes down to even like the basketball team and whatnot, and it's just more problems for the university that I just don't want to. It just sucks to see.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things where you know like you said, what they came off of with the gymnastics program, where that was a huge thing. If you reviewed Mel Tucker's contract extension with the team, they basically made it like lock and key that it's not even if we're for like his dismissal, it's not even like him being associated with these charges at all. It was if your name gets brought up in anything like this, even if it's just a rumor, like you're out.
Yeah, I mean, pretty plain and simple. It's
We're like they
yeah, it
made
just
it
honestly it
they
doesn't.
where it just shows like the idiocracy that he truly has, where it was written in his deal like, oh, we don't even need you to be like accused or alleged. If there's even a rumor out there about anything inappropriate, like you're done. Which is what
Yeah,
Michigan State has already come forward with, like, oh, we were way ahead of anything like this prior. Where like we had grounds for dismissal the second his name was even rumored.
yeah, and I mean it's smart on them, like because they don't need any more problems there. So, good on them to have their new group of leaders kind of take over a situation and implement an idea that honestly kind of helps Michigan State save face because they were so active, because they were so proactive in the situation.
Well, I was just reading into it a little bit more, that more details have come out now. Um, and it's not humorous, but it's just one of those things that makes you shake your head. Is he's alleged to plan for an appeal from the ruling, and it's based on new information of a third party. The person they're alleging has this information died in a car accident over the summer. Like,
Oh,
so
yeah.
so
They,
so like,
they're
oh,
going to help out.
yeah, so it's like one of those things where, oh, there is someone that was aware that we did have a consensual relationship, but he did die in a car accident over the summer, just so you are aware, but he did know. And it's like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not going to make your case here with this one. Just it's moronic. It's all dumb.
Mm,
It's so stupid.
just such a rough time for the
Oh
Big
man,
Ten right now.
I'm gonna put more Baileys in my coffee on that one. Yeah.
Cheers.
On to even more negative news that I just learned this week, and I am not happy about it. I am really upset. So I didn't know that I know you told me about 2 weeks ago or a week or so ago about James Madison. It's only their second year in the NCAA. I didn't know that rules came with this,
Yep.
and these rules are not cool. So James
No.
Madison, because it's their second year in the NCAA, is not allowed to play in a bowl game. The only way that they would be able to play in a bowl game is if there was not enough 6-6 teams that qualified. 6-6 teams when they literally could go 13-0. 6-6 teams, but they can't play in a bowl game because they jumped from the FCS to the FBS, and because they jumped, they have a rule in place that it takes 2 years for you to gather bowl eligibility because um, they want to make teams not want to make the jump if they're not ready to compete at that level.
100% on that, and I may be mistaken, but I believe what the issue was is James Madison was projected to jump later in the future to higher level competition. And basically they broke their conference allegiances and everything at the D2 level, where teams are scrambling to fill their schedule. Now we don't have this opponent anymore, and because of doing things like that, it was all right, well, you can play D1, but you're not eligible because you broke your conference affiliation too soon.
Oh, so that's like I've read that the rules are just because they don't want it to be in terms of coming when you're not ready. And that it's a rule that's in place that is for every team no matter what. It's just honestly,
Which is kind of what it goes with, is you play out your schedule you have lined out, and then make this move. And they said, well, we're kicking ass down here at this division, we want to go up. So they
yeah,
did. But like you said, the unfortunate thing is, watch this play out where James Madison goes like 13-0,
yeah,
and this is the best year they're ever going to have in program history
yeah.
at this
Like,
level, and it's just all for naught.
yeah, I mean, I don't know for sure what the two bowls are that are representing the college football playoff, but like this is their opportunity that they would be in an Orange Bowl or, like we got to experience with NIU. This is their opportunity for that. Like that's something that I don't think I'll ever see again from Northern Illinois is them play in a bowl game like that. I just that expectation is no longer there. Like the days of Jordan Lynch and Chandler Harnish are gone. Um, it's just not plausible to think that a school of that level is going to get that opportunity again. James Madison is in that boat. They could be better. They could be sustainable. They could be Boise State style sustainable, but the likelihood of that is not very good. So it is. It's very disappointing. And I think I know that they've made appeals and stuff to try and get this overturned. And NCAA, like we keep on making cries out to you to, stop being so these are the rules. And these rules are ancient. Like they're not very good rules anymore. You have to adapt. And I think punishing a team for being too damn good is not a good way of not adapting. So
This is one of the situations you really wish they would read the room. And
yeah,
I understand what the protection rule is for a team like this. Like, don't jump too soon where you're not ready, because you get your ass kicked when you come up here. This is the opposite. They're kicking ass.
yeah,
So this is like where you got to read the room. You got to make an exception. And just really quickly want to touch base, because we were talking about the old days, the NIU Orange Bowl. Rest in peace, NIU former kicker Matt Sims. We lost this
uh,
week, which was really tough to see.
yeah. Rest
Oh,
in
oh, always,
Sims.
always remember that kick against Iowa to give us that chance to go to that huge game. So very unfortunate loss for the NIU program.
Yeah, definitely condolences out to his family and the NIU community that I'm sure there's a lot of players that were on that team that loved him. So absolutely sad to see us at such a young age. Um, you know, um, Going forward with it, right now, if James Madison was eligible for a bowl game, they would be number two. in terms of the non-power fives, as Air Force right now is ranked 19 and would be the number one team that would get to play in that New Year's Six bowl game. James Madison would be number two. Part of me really hopes Air Force stays undefeated now. I mean, I wanted them to be undefeated either way. I think it would be really great to see them in the New Year's Six game, but I want Air Force to continue to stay undefeated because I don't want James Madison to be the team that's ranked number one and doesn't get that opportunity to do that when they deserve it. Kind of the same way we're talking about the Michigan thing. It's just like we're losing these opportunities of these teams that are really good, and one, we're not getting to see it. One, we will probably get to see it, and it might mean nothing. And it's just a bad look in general.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree with it. Where I'm not gonna lie, the Air Force game today may scare me a little bit. Potential,
I've been
potential,
thinking about
potential
too.
trap over there.
Yeah, Colorado State. They're not scrubs. It's gonna be a hard fought battle. I was definitely planning on paying attention to that one today because I thought that could end up being a really good game.
I looked into it a little bit, and you know, Colorado State has been really competitive this year. Their record does not show how competitive a team they have been. Aside from, I think they got blown out by like Washington State. Ever since then, they've had some decent games, and even their coach set the line today that if we get to 35 points, we're gonna contend.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He said it. He said it at 35 hard that if we have 35 points on the board, don't be surprised.
Well, I'd be kind of surprised, but um,
Hey, he set the mark. I'm just going off the man's word, but overall, I do find that a potential trap game. So we'll see how the competition goes.
yeah, I'm with you. I've been getting that feeling too. I was actually, one of those games that I don't want to force that I'll probably put into one of my stupid parlays that I make throughout the day because why would I just take wins if I get them, which I haven't been getting a lot of late, but we'll get to that later. Um, what was I? I was looking for something and I completely lost track of what I was looking for. So sorry, I got a little distracted. But
Saturday morning brain fart. It's fine. They happen.
yeah. So I know that we'll kind of jump ahead with it, since we already started previewing the college football playoff or the New Year's Six teams eligibility. The other teams that are in there right now behind Air Force are Fresno State, Toledo, and Liberty. Liberty, who already played this week on Tuesday. If you watch the show on Monday, I told you all to bet Liberty. They were -3.5 when I told you to bet them. I ended up betting them at -5, and they still covered easily. I looked at it in the third quarter when I was at work, and I didn't feel the need to have to pay attention anymore. So it was really nice, even though it did get closer than you would think. It got to 42-29, but Liberty was up big early, and there just wasn't any coming back for Western Kentucky in that one. So they continue to stay undefeated. They're a team to look out for possibly being in the top 25 come tomorrow. Toledo has a bye week this week, I believe, but it's because starting on Tuesday, Maction, baby.
Best time of the year.
Yeah, so
Best time of the year.
NIU will be part of that action on Tuesday. So it's that time of year where the MAC kind of takes over Tuesday and Wednesday nights, and that's your college football entertainment. So cool to see. Toledo will be playing this Tuesday or Wednesday as well. I know there was quite a few Tuesday games. There is a couple of MAC games today. I actually am betting them, so we'll get to that as well later on. And then Fresno State, I don't recall. Do they play today?
They do, and they play a very high-scoring UNLV team.
Oh yes, okay. We were talking about this before the show. Yeah, UNLV. You were saying that everything you were reading on this game was stay away from the spreads and all that, and just completely, it's up in the air. It could go either way. I think a big reason for that is because no one understands UNLV. They were the worst team in all of college football last year. Like they were a mockery where it was a legit thing where it said, whatever it is, just bet the over on the UNLV game because the team they're playing is going to cover it themselves. That was something that sharps were telling everyone to do, and it worked out for like 4 straight weeks for me. So I was all about it. But they were bad, and then all of a sudden this year they've completely flipped the script.
I mean, they've not only completely flipped the script. The fact is, this might actually be low key one of the best games of the day. If you are a diehard college football fan, it's 6-1 versus 6-1. But the reason I'm gonna pass on the game is, the spread right now, it has Fresno State at -8.5. Most of the scores I'm seeing, the predictions are like 28-20 in that range. We're just in terms of action, I'm gonna pass. I don't like, especially, I don't know which way I would even want to go. If I want to take the Fresno State, do I want to take UNLV? The fact that the average score falls right on that line, where just nah. Maybe I sit back and just enjoy college football.
Yeah, it's definitely not a game that I would be too interested in betting. I for my lower level college football, I mainly follow the MAC, and I've seen that Fresno State. They were a good team last year. They had a crazy end of the season last year where they played Boise State a lot, like back to back weeks, to end the season, and they weren't the favorites in the first one, and I think they were in the second one, but they've been a good team now for a couple of years, and I would think that they had the edge on a UNLV team, but when this UNLV team went from the worst in college football to a 6-1 program this year, I don't know what to think. So it's definitely stay away from that one. It could be just Fresno State rolling over them like last season, but it probably won't be based off of what I've seen because I wouldn't even be paying attention to UNLV at all. Like that's just not something I do.
Well, this is one of those games that, we've talked about in the past, where this is my big dumb brain. When I hear Fresno State, I just automatically associate David Carr, Derek Carr. This team's good. This team's always good. They always seem to have a quarterback over there. I mean, their quarterback from last year is the backup in New Orleans now. It's just one of those where I look at it, I always just want to go Fresno State, but with bringing in the fact that UNLV has made this complete turnaround, they put up points, I'm gonna sit back and just enjoy the fact that it has some New Year's Six implications. I'm just gonna watch the game. I'm not gonna touch it.
Yeah, I mean it's more that we could probably credit to the transfer portal for probably helping UNLV out a lot here. The transfer portal is turning around organizations all over. I mean, Colorado, obviously, they were awful last year. Now they got a lot of talent, and they'll keep on bringing in talent. They're not ready yet, but they're still a talented football team. I actually was just seeing on the TV there that for the Colorado opening basketball night thing that all the schools do, to get the gym filled up for practice or a one-on-one game or whatever they do. That Travis Hunter and Shadir Sanders did a 3-point competition against each other, and neither one of them were basketball players. They picked the right sport because they were over.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see how this ends up playing out. Like I said, I really hope Air Force continues to roll, but that's going to be an interesting game. Fresno State will be interesting. And then you're getting a lot of Liberty. Liberty played on Tuesday night. I'm guessing they might be playing on another Tuesday or Wednesday coming up here. I don't know how their schedule plays out. And then the MACtion starts this week. Toledo will be playing on Tuesday or Wednesday nights for the rest of the year, except for that weekend after Thanksgiving. Normally they play Friday or something with that one. But
Out of all these games or teams with New Year's Six implications, I'm just gonna go on record. I know you support me in this and always have. Tuck Toledo.
absolutely. We got Chris White there in the comments. Like, good to see you, Chris. He didn't didn't have the ability to jump on today, but thanks for telling me how good looking I am. I needed that.
I appreciate it.
uh, with a little bit more news, and then we'll kind of get into the actual slate of couple of games that we wanted to talk about. I mean, it's a very weak week, but Cade McNamara plans to return to Iowa next year to be the quarterback, and he plans on scoring more than 20 points twice.
And you know what? I think this is completely possible for him. Just we know what needs to happen. I was laughing. Arkansas fired their head or their offensive coordinator in the middle of the week, and obviously my algorithm on X is very Midwest based, and I was just laughing at all the Hawkeyes fans reposting like you can do that.
Oh man. Like, oh man, Iowa. You know, we always talk about how bad their offense is, and they've kind of become our butt of jokes in terms of what they put out there offensively, season after season, and somehow find ways to win like 8, 9 football games every year. But you know, hopefully, Cade McNamara recovers from his injury and is able to lead the way for them. With that, we got 5 games that we wanted to profile. You know, this week is not the strongest college football week. It's going to be a week where you're hoping to see a lot of upsets, as long as one of those upsets isn't Pitt beating Notre Dame. But we're not going to talk about Notre Dame today. That game's not really on the top of the list of conversation. But the one that is on the top of the list of conversation, Pac-12, of course. We got Oregon. We got Utah. What do we got going on here? What are you thinking, Ross?
All right, so I did come prepared for the one stat that we always need to address. Kyle Whittingham, potentially one of the most underrated coaches in the country. Just the sustainability of that program since he's taken over. He's one of the longest tenured coaches in college football for one program. It's absolutely unbelievable. With that being said, we know Oregon's a very good football team, but I would like to bring up under Kyle Whittingham, Utah is 88-25 at home. They are relentless. They are physical. They beat the shit out of teams. I would not be surprised to see Utah add to that record and take down another one today. I think there's just something about them playing at home under him. Even with Cam Rising not in there, he gets the juices flowing. I will not be surprised to see Utah hold in there today.
Yeah, you know, I've kind of been getting a lot of sentiments of that from everything I've been looking at, and I still absolutely believe Oregon's going to roll them. I just do. I I think Utah. I think it's very possible Utah could beat them. But what it comes down to for me is Oregon's offense is really good. I know Utah's defense is outstanding, but you to stop Oregon the whole entire football game with the defense that Oregon has on the other side of the field and Utah's inability to put up numbers offensively for the most part. I know they've put up 34 the last couple of weeks, but they are playing against USC, who we know is god awful on defense. They're playing against Cal, who's not very good. I just honestly don't. I think that makes a difference here. I think Oregon having the ability to have a defense that's good. Yeah, Utah might be able to score a little bit, but I don't think they're going to. I think Oregon's probably the best defensive competition that Utah has had to play this year. And since Utah hasn't been that good, on the offensive side of the ball, I think that makes a difference. The way that Utah can win the game is basically they got to make Bo Nix turn the ball over at least 3 times. Same thing Notre Dame did to Caleb Williams. They have to do that to Bo Nix today. Because if they're not getting turnovers, Oregon is going to be on that side, on their side of the field, the whole entire game. They are going to control field position. They are going to control the time that they have the ball. Like, even if Utah's standing them up, Oregon's going to get a couple of first downs on most of their drives. Utah might not get first downs on those drives. Field position is going to be a key factor here, and I think Oregon's going to win the football game because they have the ability to control those things.
Can completely see where you're coming from. I'm gonna stick with the Kyle Whittingham at home in these big games. However, I can see a blowout occur for Oregon. I could also see the reverse where last team that has the ball wins the game.
Yeah, I agree. I if you read the article that I put out yesterday for the betting, I did take Oregon -6.5 just because I've it's honestly more feeling than anything on this one. It's something that I haven't done enough of with my betting this year. And I've gone through it with this week, which I'll get into at a little bit, but like I a lot of the times I sit there and I go with the analytics, I go with the models that I'm looking at, and like I'll say 2 weeks ago I went 4-4, and I went against the models on a lot of them. This week I went against the models on quite a few of them, but there was one that we'll talk about that I did go the other way with. But you know, when I've been going with the models, I've been off. I've been getting my ass handed to me. Last week I got absolutely my ass handed to me, and I was pretty model based last week. Um, and I mean, a lot of it is just like looking at both sides, like how many yards do they give up on defense per the pass game and all that stuff. But Oregon's just got a feeling for me, and I just kind of like how you got a feeling for Utah. It's definitely. I'm glad I'm going to be able to watch this game. It'll be on at this an hour after Notre Dame starts, so I could have both those games on at the same time. And I'm glad I get the ability to check that one out today because I won't be able to watch the nightcaps tonight. So I'm glad that all the games I want to see are pretty much before the nightcap. So that's cool.
I will say, with it being said, that I do really like Utah for this game. I do like your pick with the Oregon spread, just for the fact that I do believe this game may come down to who has the ball last. Which, in that case, if it's Oregon, there's your spread.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm hoping. We'll see. It's gonna be the best game of the day, definitely to watch. What Utah's able to do defensively is very impressive, but it also they have many holes on offense that leaves it open for them to one or two scores right out the gates, and that might be it for them. So, uh,
And we'll see. Does it lead into the narrative that you and I have talked about the past couple of weeks of the Pac-12 just eats itself alive?
yeah, absolutely. Uh, And honestly, that's the only Pac-12 game that I put on the list. I kind of actually just realized now that I did one game from every single major five conference today as the ones we were going to cover. So I guess pretty good on me to get around. But the other one, the only other ranked matchup that we want to talk about is Duke versus Louisville, a battle of two teams that played our Irish this year. Notre Dame beating Duke, Notre Dame getting blown out by Louisville. And then Louisville having a dud in what was your big upset pick. You said it was a trap game, and Pitt came out there and beat them 38-21. Uh, and now Louisville plays Duke. Last I saw was Riley Leonard was planning on trying to play today for Duke. I'm not sure if anything's changed on that end because I have noticed that the spread has continued to climb. As yesterday it was at +4, and today I'm seeing it's at +6 now for Duke.
So I have my little cheat sheet right here, and the only notes I took for this game, I think it's going to be a good game, dependent on one thing, and it's Duke Riley Leonard. Is
Yeah,
he in the game or is he not?
yeah. And that's honestly like I sat there yesterday. I was writing an article for the betting segment, and I wrote out a whole entire thing on the Duke Louisville game because I was going to take Duke. And then after I wrote the whole entire thing and looked into it more, I'm like, I don't like this game at all. Like, I don't want anything to do with it. And I deleted the whole paragraph. I'm like, that's it. Wipe my hands of it. I'm not doing it. I hope that I could get some information sooner than others because if Leonard is in the game and +6 is still out there, I'm going to jump on that +6 really quick. But otherwise, I'm not going to bet this game just because I know Duke does have the ability to win without Leonard. Their backup quarterback, Beelan, I believe is his name. He's not very good. He doesn't pass the ball very well, very low numbers when he has had to play for Leonard. But Duke did go out there and beat North Carolina State 24-3 without him. They do have a stand-up defense that's pretty damn good and could keep them in a game. And I still think Duke could have a shot at winning, but I think if Leonard doesn't play, Louisville will take it just because they are at home, and that's a tough place to play. Yeah,
And that's my thoughts exactly. Are we're familiar with Mike Elko, ex Notre Dame coach, great defensive coach, has a very good defense with that team. I think they're going to be able to stay in the game with Louisville. The X factor is Riley Leonard on the other side of the ball for them. If he is, I could see Duke win this game but that's going to be their X factor. If they don't have Riley Leonard again, I think it fairly close, but I think Louisville does get it done at home, even with a stand-up effort from the Duke defense. I think Riley Leonard is just going to be that X factor needed to get the game to win this game for Duke.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I mean, there's really nothing else more like without knowing if Riley Leonard is going to play. There's not really anything else. Just one thing that I do want to mention is like this game is huge for these teams as well. This is their chance at going to the ACC championship game. One of these teams, whoever loses this game is out. Like that's it. No ACC championship game for you. I know Duke would like another shot at Florida State, and I'm hoping that losing last week to Florida State in what was a tough game that was hard fought, and they completely let it get away from them in the fourth. I'm hoping that they're not tired as Louisville's coming off of a bye week. And I hope that doesn't affect Duke's play on the field as well. And that's the one thing that kind of also stuck in my head when I was thinking about betting. And I was like, that could be a factor as well. Like there's a lot of things that are piling up for Louisville. But even watching Notre Dame play the two teams, I didn't think Louisville was better than Duke was, despite the outcomes of both those games. I like this Duke team. So I'm kind of at heart cheering for them. I know Chris White is also in the same boat there. We kind of want to hope that Duke gets there to play Florida State again in an ACC title game. Even though we liked North Carolina there for a while too, but I think Drake May kind of upset us with that loss to Virginia.
Yeah, and just because we're on the topic, Florida State, a great team, but there's just, for whatever reason, there's been an inkling in the back of my mind for weeks now, watching some of these games, that I feel like I have them on my radar as potentially one of the teams that becomes susceptible to a trap game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm not very impressed. Like I think Jordan Travis is a good quarterback. He's had a pretty good season. I think that he's tied with Dylan Gabriel for the fifth spot in the Heisman race. So I mean his name's up there. It's just every game it seems like Florida State gets themselves in trouble, even when they're blowing teams out. Like when they beat the shit out of teams, they still seem to have a hard time getting to the point of beating the crap out of the team. Like they just get going late. But
and you hit nail on the head there, where they get it together late and they pull away and they turn it into a blowout. I just keep thinking to myself, for as impressive of a team as they are, that there's just going to be one of those games where they hit that midpoint of the game where typically, they would open it up and start running away. I'm thinking one of these weeks they're going to get a team that just ain't going to go away.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I wouldn't be surprised, they do kind of have, based on who they're playing to end the year, there are some teams in there that may surprise you, and just they don't back down. Florida State doesn't pull away, and they're in it, and it comes down to who has the ball last.
Yeah, I mean, last week it could have been a completely different story too, with if Riley Leonard didn't get pulled from the game with re-injuring himself. I mean, and I know that he was kind of one leg to begin with, but he was still running the ball. He was doing everything that he can to keep pushing Duke forward. And when he went out of the game, I think it could have hurt Duke's soul a little bit and allowed Florida State to have that fourth quarter that they did. That's it. There's an X factor for that game with Louisville. It's Riley Leonard, and we'll see with Florida State going forward. Does Florida State plays Wake Forest today?
Florida State plays Wake Forest today. They play Pittsburgh at Pittsburgh the following week. They're home against Miami. They have the Powder Puff game against North Alabama the week before Thanksgiving, and then and obviously the big game after Thanksgiving, they play Florida at or splits neutral site, but they do play Florida.
Does Florida like just have to play every game at a neutral site? Is that the rule? Like Jesus. Like
It's one of those things where you just really wish they would stop doing that crap sometimes.
they got to do it
And
safe.
yeah, just hey, why don't we bring it and make it an even bigger game? Have them go play at home. Have them play in Gainesville. Like, let's make it more exciting where it flip flops yearly. The Wake Forest game, I could see Wake Forest come out of nowhere and keep it close.
I
And
hope
then
they do.
and then next week Florida State's at Pittsburgh. We already saw what Pittsburgh could do with the trap game.
Yeah, well, I trying to keep those thoughts out of my head today as Notre Dame plays Pitt, but
Yeah, agreed.
I'd like to see Wake Forest go out there, and if Wake Forest could find a way to upset Florida State today, that'd be cool. I am going to see Wake Forest in a couple of weeks as me, my fiance, and our roommates are got 2 rooms at the Four Winds Casino in South Bend for Friday and Saturday night for free, and are gonna go to a Notre Dame Wake Forest game on Saturday afternoon for senior day. So I would like to see Wake Forest come out there after a win with Florida State and stuff. That could be make the game a lot more fun to see them play. Even more of Sam Hartman playing his old team in his last regular season home collegiate game that he's probably going to play. So at least I think that's all he could do. Unless they make some new bowl game at South Bend that Notre Dame somehow has to play in the next 2 weeks. So, but with that, we had what was another game that we had? Oklahoma versus Kansas game that's going to be starting in under an hour. So we are under an hour until we get some college football today. Yeah,
Love it.
Kansas is going to probably, as the head coach had said for Kansas, quarterback Jalen Daniels is on the doubtful or questionable side. I don't know what that really means, but the doubtful to questionable side. So Jalen Daniels will not be playing today. It will be the backup quarterback who's been pretty decent. His numbers have actually surpassed Jalen Daniels now because Daniels been out for so long. At least passing wise, Daniels has really dynamic feet, which is why he's a difference maker in terms of how Kansas season could be going right now if he did not get hurt a couple weeks ago. But this is a game that honestly, I'm seeing that the spread started off at 9 or 10 for Oklahoma. Now it's all the way down. Like I looked right before we started this show, it's down to 7.5. So it keeps on trending towards Kansas. I think a lot of bets are probably coming in on the Kansas spread just because Oklahoma doesn't scare a lot of people still, despite the way they played against Texas. I mean, last week they almost lost to Central Florida, and people know that they are susceptible to taking a loss. So Kansas at Kansas, it's going to be a fired up crowd. It could end up being a really tough game for Oklahoma to get out of there with a win.
No, I was looking at it earlier, and of course, I love my trap games, but I wouldn't really call this so much of a trap game. Is we know Kansas is a decent team. Obviously, you see the number 6 next to Oklahoma, which makes it a bigger thing. Yeah, we get it. Whatever. Kansas is a very good football team. We already spent a whole segment talking about their head coach in the past. I'm not going to be surprised to see Kansas take this game, and I don't think it would. It's one of those things you label an upset. Is it really that much of an upset though? We know that team does have some talent on it. They are missing their star player, but they still hang around. They still play well.
Yeah, no, and that's absolutely is like they still play really good football, and it's going to be really tough for Oklahoma to go in there and just take over this game because they haven't shown much ability to do that. I think they come in with a different look when they play Texas. Every year, you could think Oklahoma's bad, and they're just going to find a way to play well with Texas. But in general, I don't know how they're an undefeated team. I know Dylan Gabriel's taken over a lot of games and done everything that he can, but they've come close too many times. They've had a lot of tough battles, and today could be that one that kind of puts an end to them. I think there's a reason why they're the undefeated team that's number 6. And I think that they're probably the most susceptible to taking a loss outside of Florida State, just kind of based off of the opponents that they have to play. It's it's going to be an interesting game today for sure. I wish that Daniels was playing because I think Kansas would have beat Texas if Daniels was playing, uh, and I know that it would make a huge difference here against Oklahoma.
I believe Florida State and Oklahoma are the two teams, at least right now, in the top 10 and in the playoff conversation. I think those are the two teams that are most susceptible to taking a loss prior to the end of the year. I will not be, you know, Oklahoma realistically probably gets it done today, but also the reverse. Not going to be surprised if they go down to Kansas at Kansas. Would that it won't be a shock loss to me where you're like, oh my god, because you know what kind of team Kansas is. They do have talent, and especially if Jalen Daniels comes out of nowhere and says, "Oh, I'm playing."
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen anything like that. I think that's going to be on Fox or FS1, probably Fox, but I don't have that game on as I have soccer, that pregame show on as I have soccer on. But I haven't seen any type of updates scroll across the screen or come through my phone or anything like that as I try to break some breaking news that I'm not getting. No.
Yeah, I love my trap games. I would not even call this a trap game today. I think this is going to be a decent football game overall, and will not be surprised if Kansas hangs in there and potentially even gets it done.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Moving on from that, I think this might be a 2:30 game. We got number 1 Georgia versus Florida. They're playing at the home of the Jacksonville Jaguars in a neutral field game. Uh, this game's got one question mark behind it, and I think it's how does Georgia perform without Brock Bowers? Uh, the offense runs through him. He's the most dynamic player on the field. There's Georgia has talent, but they just don't seem to have that one breakout player on offense. Nobody's really stood out this season for them outside of Bowers. And honestly, my feelings towards it is if Bowers wasn't there against Auburn, Auburn beats Georgia. So you kind of have to that's the big question mark is how does Georgia's offense flow without having their big time playmaker?
I had a very simple take on this. I'm expecting. I mean, that staff is one of the best staffs in the country overall. Really simple. If they get anybody else to step up today and have it and just have a game, Georgia wins this, no problem.
Yeah.
I am not impressed with Florida.
No.
I think Florida can be a good team in the future. I just don't think they have the talent there yet. I know they're having some decent recruiting classes come in the future because they like the new head coach. He is an offensive whiz. That just I think if Georgia can get anyone to step up today in the absence of Brock Bowers in the lineup, they're going to get it. I'm not saying it's not going to be a close game. It could be, it could be one of those comes down to the wire. But I'm expecting Georgia to win this game. I'm expecting there's a reason they have the win streak that they have. They just figure it out. I'm even in a neutral environment. That's the only thing that makes me think that it ends up being a close game because they are in a neutral environment. But I think Georgia is going to pull it out.
Yeah. So basically, if you seen the article that I put out bet for the bets this week, that's literally what my sentiments were.
Yeah.
It's not saying it won't be a close game. I think Georgia is going to win the game, but I'm taking Florida on the spread because 14.5 points, and I haven't seen Georgia really beat anyone by that amount. I mean, they even struggle with Vanderbilt. It's so
Uh, I think you're safe with that. I think it's going to be around the 10-11 mark.
Yeah, I mean, Florida. There's been a lot of disappointing games where they just completely don't show up, but I don't know how you don't get hyped up and to go out there and try and be the team to stop a win streak as long as Georgia's has been, because that's all I would really need to sit there. And I don't care if I was 0 and freaking 8. Like, if I have the opportunity to end something like as great as what Georgia's done, um, well, I think this guy just got a hat trick. Crazy. But do something as well as Georgia's done it. Yeah, you can't say that Georgia's going to lose any game until we actually see them lose. So we're kind of stuck in this kind of peril with them where if they don't lose a fucking football game, you can't pick against them to lose a football game, but you can pick for it to stay close because that's the kind of football play that they've had this year.
Yeah, and I mean, I think your bet is probably the way to go. I'm expecting Georgia wins this game. They're just it's Georgia. This has been recurring for 3 years now that they are just a great team. I think they're going to get someone to step up in Brock Bowers' absence, and I think that's just enough to get them over the hump. But I think you are safe with your bet um, on the Florida spread. I think they're going to get it done, but I think Florida's going to keep it close.
Yeah, and the best way for Florida to do that is move the ball on the ground. Don't let their quarterback throw too much because if he does, Georgia's gonna pick him apart just because I know how bad he is. Anyway, sorry, Graham Mertz, not a big fan. Anyway, last game that I wanted to cover, one out of the Big Ten. Upset alert. Ohio State going into Wisconsin. Uh, I think you got to keep Ohio State on upset alert here, just because Wisconsin at home at nighttime. This is going to be a fun game. I'm upset. I not upset, but if the inability to watch this one, I know that I could be getting out of the movie theater tonight and seeing that Wisconsin beat Ohio State, or there's the game's got maybe by the time I get out of the theater, I'm going to see the original Halloween at one of those places where you get food and drinks and whatnot. You have a waiter. So by the time I get out of theater, it'll be 9:30. So that game will be probably 9-10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So maybe if that's the case, I'll put it on in the car and hope that it's a close game at that point, because that's what I think it's going to be. I don't see Ohio State going out there and beating down on Wisconsin by any means, because Wisconsin plays good defense. They're just not the best offensive football team.
Nope, completely agree on it. I actually labeled this as Big Ten title preview.
Yeah, very possible.
One of the things I did want to highlight, Luke Fickell, his Ohio State ties. If there's any coach they're going to face this year that knows that program, this is the guy. It's tonight. And I also flagged the biggest thing is we kind of talked about this Ohio State team is different than the ones we've seen in the past. The past has been offensive loaded weapons blowing up. The quarterback is a question mark for them still. It seems like he's my favorite term, just like Joe Milton. He's a coin flip quarterback, 50-50. What are we going to get every week? We don't know. My question for today is they're starting Tanner Mordecai is out hurt. They're starting Locke again at quarterback. Can Wisconsin protect him and give him time in the pocket to move the ball around against that awesome defense that Ohio State has been showing this year? I think if they're able to do that, this game is going to be much closer because it's in Madison, because it's the night game, Big Ten fall football vibes. I think they can keep it close if they can exploit that. And this would be one of those that we kind of would label a trap game potentially for Ohio State, but I also do think it is potential preview of our Big Ten title.
Yeah, Chris and I talked about it, how the Big Ten needs to do some realignment in terms of who's on what side of the conference, like stop doing it east to west or whatever, because it's not working. the Big Ten title game year after year is the winner of Ohio State and Michigan versus either a
Northwestern.
Western, like that's literally what it is. Like, I don't get me wrong, the year Northwestern was in that game, I was pumped up for it. Like, I knew they didn't have a chance. They had like a bad loss to someone a couple weeks earlier. Where I'm like, they can't beat this team. They ain't gonna have a shot against Ohio State. But
Well,
it's
we're just gonna. I mean, we've already talked about it a million times. The whole conference current alignment is the only reason that Iowa's offensive coordinator has a job. Is we at least have a shot to get to the Big Ten based on our side.
yeah, that's honestly what it is. But it's every year. It's one of the last games of that championship Saturday, and it's just such a boring ass game because it's a blowout every freaking time. There, and it's not fun to watch. So, you know, for that sake, I would like to see Wisconsin come out there and at least compete today to give me some hope that the Big Ten title game might be worth putting on the TV that day, which I don't think it's gonna be, but either way you put it, whoever comes out isn't gonna get there.
Let's be honest, we would like a Wisconsin win just because otherwise the biggest Big Ten game we're going to watch the remainder of the year is going to be the game.
Well, I think next week we do. I believe it's next week. It will be Michigan versus Penn State, so that will be a good one to watch. Penn State, though, is just to throw it out there. They are on upset alert today because they're the number 10 team in the nation. The number 10 team in the nation does not win. They continue to lose. So Indiana plus 31 might be a money line bet. But yeah, like we'll see how this one plays out. I expect Ohio State to win it, but it is something to keep an eye on. Might end up being a fun nighttime game, as you know, there's not really much out there. But with that, we've pretty much gotten everything that we wanted to do. So we'll run over to the betting segment here really quick. I'm not going to add more from my article. I'm sticking with the 7 that I did. I put my 7 bets down. I locked them in. I locked them in last night instead of waiting to the last minute like I normally do. So kind of went over a couple of these games already in terms of what I think would happen. So we don't really got to get into the Florida game. I picked Florida plus 14.5 for the reasons I obviously gave you. It did go down to 14, but I took the alternate spread at 14.5 because that's the number that I came out with. Something else that I'm trying so that I don't lose any more bets is taking the number when it keeps going down and screwing me over. I also, who else did we cover? Oregon and Utah. So I took Oregon minus 6.5. So we don't need to go into those. With that, I have 5 other games, and then I also have Chris White's upset pick of the week, which and then whatever Ross may have wrote down on his side as well, even though he can't bet there in New York. Darn. But 11 a.m. start, we got Houston versus Kansas State. Houston plus 17 against Kansas State at Kansas State. Main reason for this is just because I think Houston's got a really solid quarterback there. They almost pulled off an upset against Texas last week when they were down 21-0. You know, they ended up coming back and tying the game up early in the third quarter. They took the lead on a field goal, and then Texas ended up winning the game by a touchdown. But they kept it close. They got back in the game. And what was a large spread last week, this again is a large spread. And I think Houston's starting to adapt to Big 12 football after this being their first year there.
No, I definitely agreed with you. I like the idea that Houston throws the ball. Just it's my dumb brain again associates Big 12 football. You think back to the Texas Tech with Graham Harrell throwing 700 yards a game back when we were in
Patrick Mahomes. Actually, I think about Mahomes a lot. So just because
all those air raids, I agree. I think Houston just slings the ball left and right enough. And let's just be honest, for teams like that, if you throw the ball down the field enough, you're going to score points. I think they're going to score enough to stay in the range, and you'll hit that.
Yeah, that's kind of where my sentiments were with it. They covered for me last week when I only won 2 games last week, so I'll take it. Oh, actually, I won 3 games. Sorry, 3 games last week, but I'll take it. Another game that I took down. We got a 2:30 start between Florida and or not Florida, sorry, Nebraska and Purdue. Um, Nebraska, now the number's at -1, so the betting numbers might be going in Purdue's favor. But I took Nebraska here, -2.5. I just don't think Purdue's that good. It's at Nebraska. Nebraska's not great either, but I think at home for them to win by a field goal against a pretty poor Purdue team, I don't think this is going to be that tough for them.
Yeah, I think it would be. This is one of those games where if it was flipped and we, if we're in Purdue, just that late October game, Big Ten Classic football, wouldn't
Yeah,
be surprised to see it go the other way if it's in the other venue. The fact it's in Nebraska, I liked it.
yeah. So that's kind of where my sentiments were with it. I took Nebraska there. Another
I
one that I picked.
I think that's one of those games where whoever's home is the one that's going to cover.
Yeah,
I think it just comes down to it's as simple as that.
absolutely. Can That's kind of where my sentiments were. So, um, another game that I took, and then I'll do a double Maction because instead of my Mac highlight of the week, even though I'm 2-0 in the Mac since I started doing that, I'm going with 2 Mac games to go 4-0. Hopefully. I took Colorado plus 17.5. I do want to take a look at where this line is now, as I saw it move down to 15.5 late last night. And this is a later game, I believe. So, but Colorado plus 17.5 against UCLA. Like I just don't believe we're at this point with Colorado where they're this bad. Like they're yeah, now it's down to plus 15. So 17.5, quite a different number is what it was at early yesterday. Now it's at 15. So the money's going towards Colorado as it has been all year. And I just honestly think they have a lot of offense. They To lose by 17.5, like unless the defense is that stellar against them, like I don't think you stop Colorado from putting up points whether they win the game or not.
I think this is one of those games that Colorado has had circled for the past couple of weeks after their hiccups. That this is where
Yeah.
we can make some noise again and get back in the spotlight.
Yeah, I mean,
Honestly, I could see Colorado somehow come steal this game. Would not be surprised to see them come steal this game, but 100% on your end, at least with the plus 17. Yeah, I think it's going to be a closer game than that.
yeah. I mean, the only thing that I looked at, and I put it down in the article too, was Stanford. The loss to Stanford, Colorado was up 29-0, blew the game. Last week, UCLA beat that same Stanford team like 49-7 or something. But I don't think they're relative to each other at all. It's in Colorado now is coming off of a bye week. They've had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. So they've done everything that they can. They even probably matched up tape to what UCLA did against Stanford, in which they didn't do against Stanford. I think there's just too many things for Coach Prime and his coaching staff to take advantage of that UCLA might not have the same advantages of doing with Colorado coming into this. So it could end up being a really close game. But yeah, I took Colorado plus 17.5, and that number keeps going down. So we'll see what it ends up at when the game starts. And then I got 2 Maction games. I'm a big fan of the Maction. I know Ross is a big fan of the Maction because of where we went to school. The first one, I believe, is a noon start. We got Eastern Michigan plus 3 at home against Western Michigan, in-state rivals there. But the thing here is, this isn't the Western Michigan of 2016. This isn't row your boat in Western Michigan. They're 2-5 coming in this game. They haven't been very impressive. Eastern Michigan's been on the up and up, for a while now. When back in the day when we went to NIU, Eastern Michigan was a 1-11 football team every year. They aren't that bad anymore. They're coming into this, I believe, 4-3, and they're at home. I mean, I think that they'll have a better crowd than you might normally see in terms of these games, just because some of these MAC schools, the students don't show up all the time. But in-state rivals, I'm sure a lot of the Western Michigan friends that, what people that were in the center of Michigan that went their opposite directions, they all get together. Should be a fun atmosphere there, but Eastern Michigan will have the advantage. So I took Eastern Michigan +3 at home. And the model that I was looking at uh, has Eastern Michigan as a 1.5 point favorite when I got them hitting the 3 points. So that's where I went with that game.
Yep, and once again, like we've discussed prior, I do agree with it. The only thing I hate is that fucking gray field.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because when you mentioned that, like, we were watching that game later on that afternoon, and my fiance was sitting here and she was just like, he hates that field. I love it. I think it's great. And I'm like, yeah, I'm indifferent. I'm like, whatever. Like, it's not as bad as, like, I don't really like the Boise State blue field too much. So, I kind of prefer Eastern Michigan's field opposed to that blue. So
Okay, the only one that is just atrocious is the Eastern Washington, the bright
the
cherry
red.
red.
I actually enjoy that. I think it's cool. there's a school up is it the Antioch, a school in Antioch? There's one of these football fields when I used to drive routes all the time that was painted a different color, and I was like, damn, that's a high school football field. I'm like, that's pretty badass looking, especially in the state of Illinois. Um, Lastly, the last game that I took as well was Miami, Ohio, +7.5. Um, Honestly, this is a tough game. Not gonna lie. Ohio is a good school. Uh, it's at Ohio. Miami, Ohio last week had to play Toledo and lost 21-17. I had my own Miami, Ohio last week. Didn't work out in my favor, but anyone who watches the MAC knows MAC games are close. They keep them close. These two teams are both battling to try and go to the MAC title game still. This is a huge game for both these teams. They both can't afford the loss. They're both very good. It's going to be a close game either way. I honestly am tempted. I said it yesterday in the article that Miami, Ohio is +240. I might take Miami, Ohio, throw 10, $15 on the money line because it very well can be a Miami, Ohio win. I believe in the brother of Blaine, Brett Gabbert. Um, it's got that MAC atmosphere to it. 7.5 points in the MAC is a lot, and when it's two good teams, I can't reason with not taking a team that is as talented as Miami, Ohio with 7.5.
All I have to say, Miami, Ohio, money line.
Yeah, that's what I've been thinking too. I hope that I might have to throw something at it just because, yeah, it's at Ohio, but it's just that.
I like the money line. I like Miami of Ohio. I think this is going to be a
Yeah,
great
it's
action football game. I think Miami of Ohio takes this one though.
yeah, that's where I'm at too. I'm glad that we're on the same page for the most part here today. So that's good to see. The With that, we'll go into the Gerbs upset pick. To recap, he's lost 2 in a row now. So he sat there and he was 6-0. We were feeling so good, feeling so fine. And now he has lost 2 games in a row and he's looking for redemption today. This is actually pretty funny that he did message me probably about 20, 25 minutes ago with his pick. And I actually just added it to my early day parlay. That's ridiculous to try and win $700. But we'll see if it works out. I did add it though because I did have the same sentiments where I'm like, kind of want to take this team, but the Gerbs picks South Carolina +17 against Texas A&M at Texas A&M, an 11 a.m. start. I don't really know too much about South Carolina and Texas A&M in terms of the players on the field. I won't lie to you. I have been impressed with South Carolina's ability to stay in games. So I do like the idea of them at plus 17, which is why it's not a game that I would put out there to bet individually, but it is something that I am leaning on. And I took in my parlay for this afternoon just to have something else to cheer for, as I think I only have one of my actual games I bet on that starts at 11 a.m.
This is one of those where I love the Gerbs because clearly he just enjoys the same thing I do, which is watching Jimbo mismanage a $10 million contract, and I love it. Personally, I love it. Uh, I could see Spencer Rattler throwing the ball left and right all over that team today.
You actually kind of just pinged something in my head, because something that I wanted to bring up when we were talking about Florida and Georgia earlier, and when you bring up South Carolina, we think Florida, South Carolina, you think Steve Spurrier. Florida asked Steve Spurrier for some help in terms of how to go about beating Georgia this week. Just something to put out there as a back of the mind thought as you watch the Florida and Georgia game this afternoon. But yeah, I agree with you on this one. The Gerbs, I think South Carolina. In my little family pool, I'm pretty sure I picked South Carolina that we do every week. So I'm with you. Plus 17, South Carolina seems like a pretty solid pick. Maybe I will throw some shells at it myself just to help you out, because I didn't help you out last week. I was not a fan of your pick last week, and I'm sorry to say.
Whatever.
All right, Ross. I know that you Chris back in the comments saying Coastal Carolina has the best field. Isn't that like a teal kind of color? Yeah, that one's cool. Yeah, that one is pretty cool.
I rock with the Chanticleers.
We actually got to put like a little segment together where we talk about random college football things, such as fields. Opening like the Enter the Sandman and the Clemson entrance and all that stuff. Which ones are the coolest? Might be some things to talk about when the season starts to die down and we need things to talk about as we go into recruitment and stuff. But yeah, definitely agree with you there. But Ross, I know you gave us a good trap game 2 weeks ago. Did you cook something up again?
I have one that I'm going to watch very closely, and it's a team that's been impressive. I think they are better than their record shows. I want to keep an eye on Arizona versus number 11 Oregon State.
I was right. That's why I asked. I wanted to guess. That's what I was thinking too. I actually was tempted. Arizona +3 is what I saw, and I was just like, that's not enough points. Like, it just doesn't seem right. But at the same time, it's just like Arizona's been that dog, man. They've been a team that's been impressive. They compete in every game. They scare all the top teams. They scared Washington last week. Yeah, I feel you on that one, man. I feel you.
And then the only other game I had circled, and it's not a trap, anything like that, but I think just we need to put some eyes on and pay attention, is that Texas is starting Murphy at quarterback today, but do we see the third coming come into that game if he struggles?
It's a very good possibility. We're talking about Arch Manning. Not the son of Peyton or Eli, but the other brother.
Yep. Cooper. We love Cooper.
But yeah, that would be interesting if that is the case. Who is Texas facing off with today? I can't seem to trigger it in my head right now.
Let me double check. I was mainly focused on, I know they've both been taking reps all week, but they did decide to start Malik Murphy today. They are playing a 5-2 BYU team.
Okay, yeah, okay. I did see that. BYU really burned me a couple of weeks ago by not competing with TCU whatsoever. I can see, we talked about this. I think it was me and you who talked about it 2 weeks ago, was BYU. When you look at them, You just kind
My
of think, oh, it's going
my
to be a close game. That was the
my
TCU bet. Yeah.
yeah,
So,
my dumb brain goes back and thinks that like Taysom Hill is still the quarterback at BYU. They'll win this game.
oh man, Taysom Hill, legend. Um, yeah, it's for a very weak slate, it might end up being a pretty fun day of football overall. So I hope that
We
it does.
I think the Texas, just the Arch Manning watch alert is a little fun. Like, hey,
Yeah,
maybe we get to see him. But overall, you and I kind of talked off camera about. I think the average matchup this week is like 4-3 versus 3-4 when you go down the line. So it's not saying that there aren't going to be some good games. It's just most of these teams probably eat each other alive. They're basically playing with the exact same records where
it's
it's just kind of 500 football.
it's not the same in college football as it would be in the NFL. If you're saying every game's 4-3 versus 3-4 in the NFL this week, we'd be like, this is going to be awesome. So not the
Yeah,
same thing in football.
we're looking at where most of these teams kind of already eating each other alive during the year. Going to do the same thing again today, but maybe we get some good games, some surprise games in there. But overall, I think we covered the best ones that are out there to watch. And let's just say go Arizona.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm gonna go with Chris back in the comments saying hot seat Jimbo because both of you guys not fans of Jimbo Fisher. So we'll see what happens with South Carolina today, and the Gerbs bet and everything else that kind of unfolds. Hopefully, we have a lot to talk about come Monday in terms of football and not scandal. That's kind of what we want to talk more about, but we'll see how the rest of the day unfolds. Normally, when we get off, some type of breaking news comes out, and we're like, damn it, why didn't that come out when we were doing? But we're about 20 minutes away from football starting, so we pretty much took you up to it, which this means I get a minute to recuperate and then sit down and watch some football all day, and we'll crack them and have some beers.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. That Ross, thanks again for coming on and helping Chris out after his surgery this week. So, Chris, I hope you're feeling better and back to it on Monday. And other than that, this has been College Football on Tap. Crack 'em. Have a good weekend.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, we're going to stay on for a minute longer because